Boy howdy, I sure do love scrolling the internet. I'm sure nothing's going to upset me today. Let's just take a quick little look right now. No, no wait, no, no you can't say that! How dare you! No! So you found yourself in a sticky situation. What began as just a regular fandom quickly ended up de-evolving into a scenario where now you find yourself worshipping a celebrity instead of just simply liking them. Taylor Swift has been a massive pop icon for a long time, and since as long as I've known her, she's had a pretty big following. However, I think it's pretty safe to say that in recent times, things have gotten pretty extreme, and it's a little bit worrisome. And I think it's something that a lot of people have started to notice. That's it. You are going to rue the day you ever said anything negative about my favorite celebrity. I'm going to dox you to the world. I'm going to send you death threats. I'm going to just hurl bigotry your way because I am a real fan of this person. So let's talk about celebrity worship. But before we do, I just want to get one thing right clear out of the way. I'm not the fun police. I'm not here to dictate what you can or cannot do. And at the end of the day, I'm not here to tell you that you're not allowed to have fun. I'm just here to talk about the people who go a little bit too far into the area that we call celebrity worship. So what exactly is celebrity worship? Now we're going to look a little bit into it, but it's basically when you start to look at a celebrity as more than just somebody that you admire a little bit or that you're a fan of their work. And it gets to the point where quite literally you're worshiping them like you would worship a god. People feel so strongly about celebrities that it actually gets quite dangerous. I'm going to be talking a lot about Taylor Swift because that's what's popular right now, but honestly, this is a thing that's as old as time. But it definitely feels like it's getting worse these days. Back in 2020, there was this music reviewer, Jill Mapes, who had the absolute audacity to rate Taylor Swift's Folklore album an 8 out of 10. Imagine having the gall to say that Taylor Swift is only 80% good? What? And honestly, you would think that this was some kind of awful crime based on the reaction she got from Swift fans. People absolutely laid into her to a point where, honestly, it started to get unacceptable. People doxed her, they sent her threats. They also went and just attacked her physical appearance. They called her a fat bitch. They called her jealous of Taylor, and it's like, what the heck? And the thing is, this isn't an isolated incident. We can continue to look further ahead to writer Chris Piniella, who compared the Taylor Swift Eras Tour to a tour that Beyonce is doing. Listen, I'm not up to date with popular music. I didn't even know Beyonce was doing a big tour. But at the end of the day, he thought that Beyonce's tour just was a little bit more impactful than Taylor's tour. He enjoyed both of them, and he had positive things to say in his review of both shows. However, just the fact that apparently Taylor's show wasn't as good as Beyonce's meant that it was okay to attack him and attack him pretty hard. He woke up to a bunch of Twitter messages. He was doxxed, he was sent homophobic slurs, he was called a pedophile for being gay. None of this is good, at all. And again, it continues to go on and on because it's not even just people who criticize Taylor that are open to these fans. If we continue to look further ahead, we have the ex of Taylor's football player boyfriend, which honestly, that is a mouthful to say compared to how hard it would have been for me to just Google his name. And people went after his ex, basically sending her threats and doxing her because she had some beef with her ex. She just felt like she was kind of hung out to dry and strung along by this guy. It's never super cool to air out your dirty laundry online, but I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't warrant this kind of reaction. And so, why are people getting so crazy online about Taylor Swift? As you probably guessed, this thing is, of course, the internet. The internet has made it easier than ever to keep up to date with celebrities. And with celebrities, their brand is their image, so of course it makes sense that they're constantly uploading to social media. This creates what's known as a parasocial relationship, where people get a little bit too attached in a one-sided relationship where they feel like they know everything about the celebrity. It creates this really obsessive behavior where this celebrity is the most important thing to them. Heck! Even for some reason, Jeremy Renner had his own app for a while where it was basically just Instagram, but only for Jeremy Renner. I don't know what was going on there. But this constant exposure, of course, comes with a price. Nowadays, it's all too easy to blur fantasy with reality when we're online. It's become easier than ever to create these parasocial relationships, but in reality, there isn't any kind of real relationship there. Let's also not forget, that people who get attacked by this are very real people. Just as it's easy to build parasocial relationships with people online, it's also really easy to get into arguments with people and forget that the person that you're arguing with, like you, is also just another human being. Instead, it becomes this very big us versus them mentality because people believe in their heart of hearts that what they believe in is correct. We're in this time basically where you can't just like someone for, being an artist or whatever, and you can't just dislike them for not being a fan of their art. You have to like them because they're amazing. You have to like them because they are obviously a paragon of virtue. There is a good reason to like them. It can't just be as deep as liking their music or their art. And conversely, if we look on the other side of the spectrum, if you don't like someone, you can't just say that you don't like them. For whatever reason, we've gotten to this point online where you have to dislike them for a moral reason. These people have to be bad because why else would you not like them? And it can't just be as simple as, I don't care for their music, or maybe I just disagree with them. But what ends up happening with this is that if you actually worship one of these celebrities, you view them as this paragon of virtue. There is nobody better than them. And so if somebody goes against that mentality, if somebody doesn't like this paragon to you, well, then they must be the worst person imaginable. And so of course you're going to go after them. You're going to go on the attack. And that isn't healthy. It doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit the community. It honestly doesn't benefit anyone. Because the kind of behavior that we've seen from these people, and I'm not talking about the Swift fans who are just having fun and hanging out in the movie theaters. That's wholesome and that's great. I'm talking about the people who are attacking people online. That kind of behavior is unacceptable, and honestly, it should not be tolerated in any community, period. And then on the opposite side, you have people who, very similarly to those who overly worship Taylor, absolutely despise her, and oftentimes it just seems to boil down to either politics or a fragile sense of masculinity. And we see it pretty frequently. Even with Fox News, for example, there's nobody other than Taylor who was able to make Fox News care about carbon emissions, but look at that, she flew her private jet and Fox News cared. And then also at the same time, you have a ton of weirdos online. You don't even have to look up Taylor to find them. There have been just meme pages that I follow on Instagram that all of a sudden are just throwing hatred towards Taylor for really no reason other than the fact that she's an independent, successful woman. Okay, sure. But joking aside, Taylor was pushing any kind of right-wing rhetoric online. We would see Fox News absolutely support her. Hell, they would probably make up a story about how those greenhouse gases caused by her private jets are actually good for the planet, because at the end of the day, it's just going to create an even better hot girl summer or some baloney like that. Although, honestly, she would have to probably support trad wives, and hot girl summer doesn't happen with trad wives. Now, I'm not trying to come across here as the enlightened centrist who's saying, oh, both sides are bad. What I'm trying to say here is that crazy people are bad. People who take worship all the way to their gods, or people who take worship all the way to the worst thing since unsliced bread, are both bad people. They're both people who definitely reflect poorly on themselves and on their community. You're allowed to like something and be critical about it, the same way that you're allowed to dislike something but also recognize that there's some good in it. For example, I'm not the biggest fan of Taylor's music. I think it's fine. It's not the best in the world, but also my top band on Spotify pretty consistently has been Bare Naked Ladies, so what do I know about good music? However, despite the fact that honestly she just isn't for me, I can definitely respect how great she treats her crew, because from what I've heard, it honestly is quite amazing. And I've got a friend who has done world tours working on crews like this, and you often don't get treated the best, so to have somebody break that status quo is honestly quite amazing. She also looks like she puts on some amazing shows. Seriously, I had pretty much no interest in the Eras tour before starting to look this up, but Googling it, it's holy cow, that looks really impressive. And even if the music isn't for me, the amount of showmanship and the amount of technical art that goes into this is super cool. It's really baffling. But at the same time, without being a right-wing racist nutjob, I still think that we should be a little bit critical about pollution or about hoarding money. Neither of those things are very good. Now, of course, you can't only be critical about the figures that you don't like. I know that they're in a scenario where it's a rock and a hard place. How would Taylor take a commercial flight if there's a ton of people swarming her? But at the same time, I think you should look at it and be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be flying that frequently if one flight is going to be causing the same amount of emissions as 14 US families do in a year. Because, I mean, like, the world is on fire. You're not helping it by doing this. And by that same token, it's totally okay to say, hey, her music isn't for me. It's one thing to have two different opinions. However, it's a whole other thing entirely when you start throwing around hate speech, bigotry, and just all around crazy negativity on top of doxing just because you don't agree with the way that somebody felt about something. Like, Swifties have gotten so out of hand that I wouldn't be surprised if there were people who are kind of embarrassed to admit to being Swifties. I think at the end of the day, sometimes it's okay to get up and leave the computer. It sucks when somebody disagrees with you. It sucks when somebody is a dick. However, going out and attacking them is very rarely, if ever, the correct solution to this kind of thing. And sometimes it's better to remember that, hey, these are just online people who have no real impact on anything. It's okay for me to just leave. It's okay for me to walk away from this. Because at the end of the day, somebody saying that they don't like my artist doesn't affect me or the artist in any meaningful way. My issue comes from the absolute worst of the worst. And I know that, like in most communities, the worst are typically a minority group within that. However, they're typically a very loud minority. And the issue with someone like Taylor Swift is that she's got a large enough fan base to start their own country. And so when there's a loud minority there, it's a very loud minority online. And it gets to the point where it drowns out anybody else's voice. And all you see is this absolute hatred coming from Taylor Swift. And you can understand why it would peeve off people who only see this and don't understand the rest of the community. So really, at the end of the day, just to really drive home the point, in case you somehow missed it up until now, I don't have an issue with people who are having fun. My issue comes from people who just genuinely don't understand that it's okay to not absolutely love everything that you think is good. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to leave it a like and subscribe. It really, really helps the channel out when people do that kind of stuff. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Swifties and Taylor Swift and all that jazz. Or honestly, if you know about anything else in this genre, because it was pretty fun to look into. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. At the end of the day, though, I can't force you to do any of that. I just hope that you have a good one. Oh, I'm sweating like a monkey in a fur coat right now. So you found yourself in a sticky situation where you thought it'd be fun to do a segment dressed as a fox for one joke, and now you're sweating like crazy due to the fact that the furnace is on.